Well, I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for coming. I feel so honored. As you might know, I've never written any books, let alone have a book party. So Monona is the one that puts me up to it, and this is my editor and my publisher. I never planned to write a memoir at all. After I retired, I went to take a class in writing. So these pieces are my assignment. And I wrote about things I know, my life in China and my family. My parents, pardon me for bragging, were legendary educators. And my mom's story was particularly interesting because at the time, China was just changing in the early 1920s. It started gradually to come out from under the dark cloud. And so the girls at that time not only were not encouraged to have higher education, but not allowed to have it. And my mom was a fighter. She fought not to have her feet bound, and then she fought to get an education. So these are stories I heard over and over again and never tired of listening. Mm-hmm. And I am very proud of my parents and my aunt, who was a dance teacher. But I wrote mostly about them as my loving parents. In the 19 years that I lived in China, 3/4 of it was during the Sino-Japanese War. Mm. And we were refugees in our own country. Mm. We were always running ahead, just a little bit ahead of the Japanese invading army. And we're hiding from their bombs. And so it was a horrendous time to grow up. And yet, I had perfect faith that my parents would protect me from all harm. And so I wrote about that. And then afterwards, I came to this country, finished my study, married my husband, had Duncan and Monona. A happy tale so far. Then my husband died overnight in an accident. Our world came crushing down. And luckily, I had a wonderful mother-in-law who literally stepped forward and devoted to care for the kids as well as me. And so we forged a relationship that is a perfect partnership that lasted longer than either one of our marriages. She was widowed at 24. Wow. And she was a little younger than my mom, and yet she was not allowed to have a higher education because her father didn't want her to. And she, being a good daughter, acquiesced to her father, this command. So it's interesting to me that my two mothers were about the smartest and most capable women that I met, and yet their lives are so different. Mm-hmm. So, I wrote about these things, and very slowly, because I had too much fun after I my retirement. And then in 2014, I was diagnosed with lymphoma. And then a little later, I had atrial fibrillation, and then had a heart failure. So Duncan and Monona got me up to New York. I went to Sloan Kettering to seek help. And when I got out of the hospital, she mounted a great campaign to restore me. And, you know, and
Spare time.
and she kept urging me to finish writing. I was depressed at times, you know, but Monona kept encouraging me. And she had lived in Taiwan for a year to stay with my mom and my aunt. So she knew a lot of stories that I wrote about. And so oftentimes we would sit on that table and we probed each remembered stories. And we made choices of what photo to get and the organization of the books. And for the longest time, we couldn't decide on a title. And we had about 20 different ones. We didn't like any of them. So one day, Monona and I were walking in the botanical garden, and she said, well, it has to be something that has to do with motion. I said, yeah. Yeah, something like a running and jumping, leaping. I said, kept going. She said, well, how about riding with the wind? I said, yay, that's it. So that's how the book came into being. And this is the horse that my mother had painted when she was alive. And this is her name and the year in Chinese and her chap.
Wow.
So the writing was mine, the editing is Monona.
And the title.
And she read and checked the book again and again. And you're all friends with Monona. You know what a perfectionist she is. She is relentless about details and wouldn't let me get away with any shortcut. And a month ago, she was supposed to have a relaxed vacation with Steve and Maya in Rome. What did she do? She emailed me twice a day. Mom, do you like version 4 better than version 3? And then she said, well, about the family tree, you think that little line over here and there, shouldn't it be moved a little bit to the right? So I get this daily, you know. And it really was a lot of fun working with Monona. And I am a little embarrassed to say my near-death experience did not make me any wiser. I had no revelation about the significance of life, etc. And sometimes I get really greedy. You know, I begrudge all the things I could no longer do. Folk dancing, that was my passion, was no more. And I felt like a potted plant. So when I'm by myself, to vent my frustration, what do? I curse. I curse in English. I curse in English, then I curse in Chinese. That helps. But
Teach us a curse in Chinese.
but then when I work on the book or think about the book, I'm calmed down. And gratitude comes back into my life. I think of all the love I've received from so many members of my family, from 2 generations ahead of me and 2 generations that are coming after me. I am really blessed. So this book, it's to celebrate that with gratitude. That's it. Oh. Uh-oh. lost my place. It's Mom, 19, I think.
Okay.
I'm
Very
going to
short reading.
do a very short one. This is about foot binding. And this was something that always enraged me. You know, this was practiced for about 1,000 years, and to improve women's marriageability. And the smaller the feet, the better. And it was such an atrocious practice because it was done to young girls about 5 to 7, and they're totally defenseless. So this is my mom's experience. When mother's time came, she was far from docile and resisted having her feet bound with all her might. She cried, begged, and raged. Ironically, it was the sad responsibility of mothers to ensure that their daughters' feet were bound. Having gone through all the torture herself, grandmother agonized over every wail of her little small daughter. But she had to stand firm. She believed that it was her desire as a loving mother to ensure that her daughter's feet were successfully bound so she could marry well. Being innovative, mother loosened her bindings at night so she could get a good night's sleep. Then tried to put the strips back on in the morning, hoping that the foot binding lady, there's a lady, a woman that just binds little kids' feet, hoping that the foot binding lady couldn't notice. Of course, she did, and put an end to it by sewing the strips of cloth together. Mother's feet were swollen to no time, and she said they felt as though they were being grilled on a hot skillet. Finally, after a month of her daughter's suffering and crying, grandfather, he's a classic liberal, grandfather could stand it no longer. He unwound all the strips of material from mother's feet and threw them into the kitchen stove. My grandmother wailed, "Nobody will marry our daughter now," to which grandfather answered solemnly, apparently haven't given the matter serious thought. "That's all right. I will keep her for as long as I'm able to. She can go to school, become a teacher, and support herself."
Oh.
So that was the shoes. Yeah. Just to give you an idea, the girls' feet were bound with cloth, and in 2 years' time, it'll break the arch. And these are little feet, shoes. Can you imagine? This is for adult.
Oh my God.
And so, I mean, the suffering is horrible. And these pairs are even smaller.
Wow.
So,
Put that down.
Yeah, actually,
what?
why don't we do that at the end? Because don't go too far. So a lot of you do know my mother, but for those of you who don't, you know, obviously, you can see why I wanted to save her.
It's okay, we're with you.
So it was a very personal, private journey that we were on, but it means so much to us to share it with you now. It's really given me a newfound connection to all of these people who struggled and persevered and overcame incredible conditions. And I work in immigration, but even so, like, this project really brought home for me how close these experiences are in our lives. And it seemed very necessary to preserve these stories. We're really excited and really hope that this book has a life beyond just the folks who know us. And to that end, there's a little postcard. I'm now going to morph into the PR agent. I just want to, let you know that the book's on Amazon in print, and it will be in Kindle this week. And if you like it, please write a review on Amazon. That is the 800-pound gorilla of publishing, and it will really help us. If you are active on social media, please just tell your friends about this. And one of my younger friends told me that I should create a tag. So we have hashtag Fay Hoh Yin if you want to tag it. That means it'll be searchable across all platforms. Give it to a friend, have your book group read it, let a women's group or an Asian group know about it. Mom might be able to make readings. If you know a book critic, please talk to us later. Take it to your library. Anything that you feel moved to do, we would so appreciate just helping us get the word out. And I want to just recognize a couple people without whom actually this party would have been next month. My friends Kiki and Todd. Where are they? Oh, I'm blinded. Kiki and Todd flew in yesterday from Olympia, Washington to be with us. And since they had already bought their tickets, we made it happen. And more importantly, my friend from first grade, Sara Dougherty, taught this book to her English language learners class in DC. And Mom video chatted twice with the class. And I want Sara to tell you because it was such an amazing encouragement to us that this book actually could reach other women from all over the world who are right now refugees. So Sara, this is my lifelong friend Sara.
Well, I'm a very nervous speaker, so I'm going to read. But the gift was to me and to my students. So it's an honor to be here today and say a few words about this book on this very special occasion. Monona, as she said, and I met playing hopscotch on the playground of Falk Road Elementary School in first grade. We formed a fast friendship that endures to this day. I have many, many memories from many periods of our lives, but I have one distinct memory of sleeping over at her house in junior high school, because that was the first time I experienced the quartet of Fay, Hup, Duncan, and Monona all together. I distinctly remember trying on makeup in Monona's room and then watching Summer of 42 in the TV room on beanbag chairs with Duncan and Monona. And most of all, I remember Hup cooking for us because it was the first time I had ever eaten Chinese food, and it was incredible. My memory, however, is no fat match for Fay's. Hers is very keen, and she is always so kind. My own mother died over 8 years ago, and Fay was one of the few people who offered to me shortly afterward very specific memories of my mom, born of her art of keen observation. I cried, but she knew they were tears of gratitude for that very specificity, and she knew that I needed to hear that people noticed and appreciated small details about my mom. So I live in Washington, D.C., and I studied in graduate school at Georgetown with a concentration in the teaching of writing. But only in the last 4 years, after 30-plus years of teaching, which I've served as a volunteer ESL teacher to adults from all over the world through the Companion Center in Alexandria, has my own world truly expanded. In donated church classrooms in Alexandria, just as in many thousands of other donated spaces all over this country, I work to help my class master the fine points of the English language. I teach the advanced level, and I have the latitude to design the curriculum, and I feel that my greatest challenge is really to just shore up people's confidence and create a sense of community. We always read a book together, and we always share our writing, short biographical pieces that I eventually type up and bind into individual books at Kinko's. And we become like a family every year. When Monona visited me in Washington last fall and told me about the push to complete Fay's memoir, I was intrigued. I realized I only knew snippets of her life story, but I was anxious to know more, admiring Fay as I have for all of these years. Monona sent me a few of the early chapters, and I was hooked. Not only was the story remarkable, but the writing was beautiful and lyrical, as you just heard. I suspected Fay's story of 3 generations of her family in China would resonate with my class, and I asked if we might try a collaboration. And the project exceeded my wildest dreams. Fay's stories of homesickness, loss, heartbreak, and the ravages of war, but also of love and happy moments and bravery, and the eventual successful assimilation to the United States opened my students up in ways that were previously unimaginable. When we discussed a chapter, I realized each student had memorized certain phrases that they held dear. I could also see that they were pre-writing in their heads their own chapters. When we FaceTimed the first time with you, Fay, I overheard one of them whisper to the other, "There she is." They were nervous. Fay was so generous and so sincere in counseling them not to worry about small editing mistakes, but just to write from the heart and tell their stories. And she became this rock star in our class. She also unleashed an avalanche of autobiographical stories. And after a while, I didn't even have to assign them. Students would just appear with their journals with new entries, anxious to share them with the class. And then grammar and vocabulary lessons became organic because they wanted to know the nuances behind every word. And they also wanted to know how to use a semicolon like Fay. I have one student from Afghanistan, Roya, who was very diligent but a bit reserved in the first semester. In the second semester, she was empowered by the book. And one day she came in and read a journal entry about her experiences teaching 60 girls in secret under the Taliban for 5 years, from the ages of 16 to 21. I don't think she even thought of it as worth telling until she realized how special that could be. Another student, Do Young, who's from South Korea, told me, "I didn't fully realize I had a story to tell, but now I love writing." So the paradox is that the more specific great writing is, the more universally it resonates with others at the deepest levels. For example, I have one 19-year-old in my class, and she was so homesick that we were very worried about her. She read the chapter about Fay's mother overcoming her homesickness, and then asked Fay about it while FaceTiming. And as ever, Fay's answer was empathetic and encouraging. Soha decided to stay here and fulfill her dreams and is enrolled in the local community college in the fall. Monona and Fay are an extraordinary team, and their efforts to complete this beautiful book in time for Fay to sign one for each of my students and overnight them to me to distribute to graduation on Friday were nothing short of heroic. Their combined talent and intellect and kindness know no bounds. Congratulations on the publication of this beautifully written book about love and fortitude. I know you all will love it, and I know you'll want to promote it. So thanks.
You helped me so much.
So we have a little champagne. Cue the champagne.
I don't know how we're going to do that in a very short order.
I
Why don't we all do a toast, and then
Okay.
I'll bring out the champagne, and everybody can have
Come
some.
here. Come here. I just want to say that Steve has been just a tremendous partner in caring for my mom and supporting this project. Maya has been an amazing partner. Even though, oh,
With Fay? Like, for
right.
social media?
In a minute. I think, stand straight, yes. I really think, I really think the audience for this book was one person initially. And it's, and Morley, where's Morley? She's over here, honey. Right here.
You're
And-
gonna have to call her out. Oh.
she's right there.
Oh, she's in there. She's in the corner.
So, and yay, Morley. All right.
Oh, careful.
Well, I understand that she's already heard almost the entire book. Her mom spread it to her. My sister-in-law, Amanda. That is my brother, Duncan. And the man who has taken the best photographs of my family ever is Thomas Victor. Thank you so much. So please stay, enjoy. Oh, if you don't want to sit anymore, please feel free to get up. If you want to have a Q&A with my mom, we could maybe reconvene over there. Or, I don't know.
About the photos you want to say?
Well, these are photographs from the book, some of them you'll recognize, but we learned so much in the writing of the book. We both knew a lot, but all the 8 grandparents of my mother, we didn't really know their given names, so we had to do that research. And a lot of these pictures, like I had never seen this picture before. This is the last picture of my father ever taken. So we were 7 and 9 when he died. And there's Maya made this amazing collage over there that has just a lot of elements from the book. It's all inducement. We want you to read the book. Okay, Mom, come up. I think people have questions. Come up.
Can I ask one quick question?
This is Elisa.
Your grandmother and the females in your mom's family, were they all footnote?
You can see it actually in here.
Yeah.
My grandmother's feet were very small.
And was that only of a certain class, or?
Yes, I should have said it. It's the upper and middle class with inspirations of upward
Right, so it's just a
mobility.
display of-
Yeah, and the sad thing is sometimes they lose their money, and the poor woman with small feet had to work.
Oh,
So it's absolutely awful.
thank you.
Margaret.
I was wondering how you did the research to find out the given names of your grandparents.
We called our cousins in Shanghai, in Taiwan, and then, I see my parents are quite well known. And so they have articles written about them, and my father had an autobiography. Every time she called, I have to get all the books down from the shelf and to look through something.
Well, actually, in 1982, 2 of my uncles gave me all the genealogy that they had done. So some of it was buried in my files, and we had to just put it together. So that